Hey guys, JJ Racaza here with Shooters Global. What we're going to talk about next is really important to your overall structure of your shooting. It's going to be grip. How do you develop a good grip is the biggest $1,000,000 question right now. It's the hottest thing in the field. Everyone wants to mess around with the grip. There's a myriad of different ways for you to cover grip. However, I have found out 3 different changes that you can add to your grip. According to you, with your test, when you do this follow-up range, you will figure out exactly what formula it is for your type of shooting. All of us are built differently, different size of hands, different coordination, different strengths. So what I'm gonna do is show you the type of grip and pressure and how to add and change those, and then it'll give you and enhances your overall shooting.
Brought to you by Shooters Global. We created the advanced training system and next-gen shot timers to help you progress faster.
So the biggest test on this is that grip works off of 2 principles. I got to get as high as possible, which is creating leverage. And number 2 principle is to create as much friction as I can to create that pressure onto the gun so the gun doesn't wobble. If I have holes on the gun, it's got all these unpredictability and movement. So I want to be able to squeeze that gun and fill in all the gaps in as much as possible, right? There's no thumbs down here, just basically your grip, thumb forward, and as much as I can, put as much friction with my hands as much as I can onto the gun, much contact as I can with the gun, right? So with all that said, the best way to do this is you start off of a hard target. So me, I'm going to start off on a control target. You will fire 3 slow aim shots. With your natural grip, without my introduction yet, you're just sit there and you hold. So you watch it, you fire 1 shot, and what I want you to do is pay attention to the way your dot moves in and out of the sights or in your sights, the way it returns. The next thing, after you fire 3 slow aim fire, because I want you to recognize the pattern of movement, is now I want you to shoot and add a different thing to your grip, which we're going to talk about. It's called the wrist twist. What I'm going to do is in your second 3 shots of fire, all you're going to do is take your hands, the same grip that you have, but you're going to rotate your wrist ever so slightly. You can see my elbow doesn't move, it just kind of rotates in here. So with the same exact grip that I have, all you will see is a very slight movement inward onto the gun, and that's going to be the number 1 adjustment on your grip. You're going to fire all 3 rounds with the conscious thought of squeezing the gun, firing 1, and paying attention again to any differences that will change in terms of pattern on your sights, the way it goes out, the way it comes back onto the target. The next thing, the second adjustment that I would do is what's called the push-pull. So now, instead of, you're gonna bring the grip again, you're gonna eliminate that little torque that you did earlier, you're gonna go back to your original standard grip, but then you're gonna focus more on pushing with your strong hand and pulling with your left hand. Not much, just enough. You're gonna push and pull. You can see the movement and pressure that I'm adding from the back to the front of the strap of the gun, and then you're gonna fire again 3 different rounds. You're gonna feel somewhat tension on your shoulder because now you're pushing with the right hand as I'm pulling back over here. So you're gonna feel somewhat changes in muscle activation and all that stuff. And again, fire 3 slow aim fire, good hits on target, a hard target specifically. I want you to pay attention again to the pattern on sights. If there's any difference, there should be some difference. And at this point in time, when you're doing this in a range, you will already have noticed maybe going, oh, this one worked for me and this one didn't work for me after you shoot these 2 adjustments. The third adjustment is basically combining the 2 that we just did. Now we're gonna do more of a push and pull as well as a twist with the hand. And then you're gonna shoot again the last 3 rounds, slow aim fire, and noticing the 3 different patterns. If there's any different patterns whatsoever, any changes. And then now you're gonna pick the pattern that gave you the most consistent return, the most linear pattern in terms of that style of grip according to your results. Just remember this, in terms of grip, I don't ever want to continue to move it and adjust it according to the target I'm shooting. Whether I'm shooting for accuracy or speed, I should have the same exact consistent grip that allows for me to operate behind. So with that said, if I have a lot of finger squeezes on my grip, pressure on the gun with my fingers will mess with my dexterity. So I don't want to have and focus and rely on finger strength to be able to rely on that for a good solid grip. It actually impedes the movement and the speed and the flow of my trigger finger. So at speed, if I'm holding onto the gun too tight, I can't do that same grip. So the grip has to be applicable to either when I'm shooting for speed or for when I'm shooting accuracy. So the first 3 rounds that I'm going to fire on the slow control target is the no adjustment. I'm basically just gonna use a regular squeeze on the gun, no torquing, no push and pull, none of those adjustments. I'm just gonna utilize a soft grip, solid grip, but not necessarily any of those techniques that we talked about. And then fire 3. And then I'm gonna discuss in regards to the pattern of my red dot. All right, so it looks like this. So going hot, just gonna grip the gun. Gun goes straight up and down, straight up and down, and straight up and down. So what I paid attention to there is where my dot went. My dot went to the north, 12 o'clock, most extreme corner, between 12 and 1 o'clock movement on my window. So the dot went from here to the top and corner, and it touched that corner. It almost left a little bit outside the window. So now I'm gonna do an adjustment number 1, which is basically torquing the gun. So you're gonna see me punch out, and with the same exact grip, I'm going to torque my hand ever so slightly into the top of the gun, right? So wrist pressure, not elbow, same exact structure. I'm just gonna torque the gun up top, and I'm gonna see what kind of movement or changes that will happen in front of my gun. Adjustment number 1, where I torque with my wrist into the gun, so my standard grip, and you're gonna see slight pressure, ever so slight movement. As you can see, I'm moving my hand into the gun. So now I'm gonna shoot 3 rounds, and I'm gonna pay attention to what happens to my red dot. So to me, 0 adjustment versus adjustment number 1, the only difference there was the way my dot was a lot more linear. It was very minimal difference. The first movement was a little bit up and to the right. If I'm looking at the target, it's going to the right. This time around, because of the torque, maybe it was a lot more linear, but the dot still went to the north of my window. So I'm going to apply adjustment number 2 now, which is going to be more push-pull, and I'm going to see if that changes anything. I'm going to get rid of the wrist twist, right? The torquing of the gun. I'm going to relax again, go back to my standard grip, and I'm going to apply the push and pull method at this point. So now this is adjustment number 2, more of a push and pull. So here's my standard grip, and I'm going to add the push from the back and the pull from the front. It's basically just counteracts the push, right? Automatically my hand will pull, my support hand will pull slightly, my strong hand will push ever so slightly. So I'm gonna see what the differences are now. So the pattern on adjustment number 2 was really different, was much more different than my pattern number 1, adjustment number 1. The pattern that I had was now the dot seemed to return really fast. However, I had a lot more wobble at the bottom. Before, it would just kind of go up and down and stay flat. The 0 adjustment went over to the right, a little bit of wobble on the bottom, and ended. Adjustment number 1 with the wrist twist, it was more linear, the dot up and down, but the dot was returned back to where it is fairly quickly. The last adjustment, number 2, with the push and pull, I had a lot more wobble when it returned. It seemed to have returned a lot faster. It was a little bit more inconsistent up top, but however, it returned really fast. The only thing I didn't like was that it had a wobble and a bounce when it landed and back to 0 when I was aiming on target. So I'm gonna now show you what adjustment number 3, and I'm gonna pay attention to my pattern on my sights, and then discuss again what the pattern looks like in front of my red dot once I fire the 3 shots. So this is now adjustment number 3, where I'm gonna do a little bit of a push-pull, and at the same time adding what I did, combining both adjustment number 1 and adjustment number 2. So now my standard grip, wrist twist, push and pull, and here's what it will look like. So what I noticed there was a significant change into my red dot. My red dot no longer touches the top of my window. This is when I added adjustment number 2 and adjustment number 1, combined them for adjustment number 3. Now my red dot kind of doesn't go all the way to the window. It goes still up there, but not quite as far anymore, and it returns really, really well. It came back much faster, much flatter. There was not much excess bounce on it, so that's essentially the grip. And it was consistent because I already kind of knew that leading up to this. I'm very interested to see what you guys' results are. Every time I do this in class, most people, majority of people, will pick one or the other, or if not both, the adjustments, number 1, 2, or 3, according to their style or size of hands and stuff like that, right? It gives them that really nice pattern on the red dot. So now we're gonna test that shooting at speed in the on paper, and then monitoring whether I'm shooting alphas or not. I'm gonna start from 3 yards. I'm gonna slowly back the target up. I'm gonna start with not a draw, just kind of memorizing what it feels like, that pressure, since we're still learning it. I'm gonna run the gun as fast as I possibly can, maintaining a solid split. And this is where timer will become very important, because I just wanna run multiple sets, maybe 3 sets of time, to be able to establish that split time that I'm looking for. All right, so now that I set up the timer for 3 different sets, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on 3 yards, and that will give me the baseline for speed shooting, right? I'm gonna start with aiming in on target, and I'm just gonna run 2 shots, 2 really fast shots. And what I'm trying to look for is a baseline of speed shooting, the splits that I'm looking. And the standard that I'm holding myself today is the alpha zone. So after I do my 3 sets, I'm gonna holster the gun, I'm gonna stand in the same spot, but I'm gonna bring the target way back to 7 yards, to 10 yards, to 15. And the goal is to maintain all alpha hits. The instant I start to veer away from alpha, that allows for me to tell me that my grip currently right now, with the way I developed it, the style, whatever it is, maybe I'm just learning it, is going to be my maximum limit in terms of my attack zone target, whether that's 10 yards, 12 yards, or 15 yards, whatever that will be. My goal is to always extend that further and further out. The better my structure, the better the grip, the further I can shoot targets at speed without having to worry about prepping my trigger, right? And that becomes a control target. Control target is slightly different. We no longer worry about split time. We now have to modulate our trigger slightly. This one is just gonna be focused on grip and sights and just running the trigger as fast as I possibly can. That's why we start at 3 yards, and I wanna see how far I can take this speed at 3 yards and successfully hit all alpha with the target moving backwards. I'm gonna apply immediately the adjustment number 3 because that was the one that gave me the best result. I'm gonna hold on to the gun. I'm just gonna fire 2 fast shots, all right? So I'm gonna start the timer. So now I'm gonna review. I'm not really concerned about the overall time. I'm now more concerned about the split time. What I'm looking for is 0.18, 0.18, 0.20. So that's about as fast as I'm shooting right now, 0.18, 0.18, and 0.20. Can I move faster? Maybe. I was shooting it pretty fast, or as fast as I could put it today. So 0.18 may not be impressive for most, but I'm not known as a speed shooter. I'm more known as a efficient shooter. So we'll see how far I can take this back. So I moved the target back about 7 yards. So now a total of about 10 yards or so. And I'm gonna maintain an all alpha hits again. Same exact grip and style, adjustment number 3, and utilizing the timer to measure my splits. So it gives me my 3 sets at 0.20, 0.20, and 0.21. Didn't like that 0.21. That third set is a little bit slower, but 0.20 and 0.20 is acceptable because I was at 0.18 at 3 yards. I'm gonna try to sustain and maybe even speed this up a little bit. So we're gonna move it back a few more yards and do the same exact thing again, maintaining the speed. 0.20 is acceptable. I'm still running it. I'm still maintaining the alpha hits on target. So we'll see how when I fall apart. So now that we're at 15-ish yards, we're gonna see how this works. All right. Same exact thing. I'm gonna set the timer up, 3 strings of fire, hoping to do 0.20 or less, all alphas, 15 yards. That was actually better than expected. So same thing, I was able to drop it down to 0.19, 0.19, and 0.20. The 0.20 was actually the one where I actually dropped 1 Charlie. The rest were in 0.19, 0.19, straight in the middle. So I'm gonna push it back again further. All right, 20 yards. We'll see if I can hold it together. Here we go. So at 20 yards, I'm able to do the same thing, 0.19, 0.19, and the last one was 0.22. That was actually better than my 15 yards. I'm still all alpha, kept it in the center, so I'm gonna push it back even further out to 20 yards now. All right, guys, so that's basically the first way to test your grip. You continue to do that with it already mounted, full extension, grip is solid. You know, a lot of conscious thought because obviously you're just learning this new style that the formula, the adjustments that you made, right? And you test that. You test it as far as you can until you fall apart. I'm probably gonna be able to go all the way to 25 to 30 with this possible potential grip, splitting at about 0.19-ish, right? That was my splits at 3 yards. I was 0.18, 0.18, and 0.20, and I was able to sustain that all the way out to to about 20 yards or so. And I was maintaining all alpha except for 1 Charlie at 15 yards and stuff like that. And that was when I had a 0.21. Now, the next step of testing this is coming from the draw. This is really more applicable to what we currently do, as opposed to just sitting there, holding onto the grip and then running the gun. Now I'm gonna actually come from the draw each and every single time. So I'm gonna make 2 adjustments. right? One from the draw. So now I'm to reset my timer, and I'm gonna give myself 3 sets, and I'm gonna give myself a pause timer of about 3 seconds to reholster my gun and set up all over again for the next string. So I'm gonna do same thing, 3 exact strings. I'm gonna still chase the 0.19 timer. Instead of starting all the way at 3 yards, because I already know what my 3-yard speed is, I'm already starting it already right now at 10 yards. And then so I'm gonna immediately test how quickly I can build this structure with this grip and still run this gun. How close can I maintain that 20-yard all alpha group with now coming from the draw? Can I still sustain all alpha at 20 yards, ripping at 0.19? So now I'm gonna go back to common. I'm gonna, right, that's my setup. I'm gonna cause my pause time to go up to about, let's say, 3.5 seconds to allow me to be able to go back to the holster. My delay should be 2 seconds. My time limit should be a little bit more as well to give me a time to be able to go back to the holster. And I'm gonna require 2 shots, 3 sets, everything else, all else is the same. And here we go. Yeah, didn't like that one. So the first one I didn't like, immediately my second shot, I dropped it down low. I overcompensated my grip, and I actually ran it a little bit faster. It's a 0.15, 0.17. I had a really fast split there. My second run, that was all alpha, 0.15, 0.17. So again, 0.17, 0.17, 0.15 on my run. My second string was my fastest, but the second and the third were both all alpha. So I'm gonna move this back to 15 yards and see if I can sustain that same exact speed from the holster. 5 steps, that's about 15 yards. All right, timer's set. Here we go. I'm gonna do 3 strings at 15-yard line, going for 0.18 to 0.20 splits, all alphas. Ah, trigger froze. All right, so there's 3 sets here. The first one, I trigger froze, obviously because I'm going as fast as I possibly can. That tends to happen. My finger freezes a little bit, so that's my split time, 0.55. Since I had 3 sets set up, I just went right ahead and holstered and went again and did the same next 2. The next 2 are 0.21. I don't like it because it's starting to slow down, but basically this is also telling me that my body naturally wants to slow it down a little bit because I'm already at 15 yards. All 3 sets were all alpha, but I need to work on being faster here and trusting my structure that I set and built with that grip. So I'm gonna do that same set again, and I'm gonna continue to see, I'm gonna see if I can drop the split time to about 0.19. So that was more like it. I was able to get my times down, my split down to 0.18, 0.19, and a 0.19. So that was a lot better run, a lot more consistent to what my 10-yard, 7-yard run was, and they were all alphas again. So I can repeat this drill over and over and over. Today I'm having a good day. I can continue. I'm at 15 yards already, double tapping, as relying on my just grip and one sight picture, essentially seeing the way the dot returns, right? Although I'm only relying on the first sight picture to react to, I'm shooting the next shot just before I see my sight picture. However, I do see another sight picture in there because I've worked on my grip. There's a reason for that, right? It comes back just before I break the shot. I'm not shooting my second shot blind and hoping that it gets on target. The ultimate goal here is that to go from 15, 18, 20 yards from the draw. Because now when I have it full presentation on target and they're just running 2 shots on target, that makes it real easy for me to set my grip. However, coming from the draw, it's that different dynamic. So that's when you have to learn how to establish this conscious versus subconscious skill set. If I memorize what my grip feels like that one time, right, with the push pull or the twist or the push and pull and twist all at the same time, if I start to memorize that and see what gave me the most beneficial pattern on target, that's what I'm going to repeat. And I'm gonna repeat that over and over for thousands of reps until I'm able to expand this one. Once I have established grip, my goal is to see if I can do it at 15, I can do this at 20, and I can do this sustainable at 22, 25 yards. The further I can shoot this, the better that means my grip is. The earlier I am, some of you guys will fall apart at 7, some of you guys will fall apart at 10. Don't worry. Pay attention to the way your grip is. You will develop this eventually with your structure, the way to be able to run the gun solidly without disturbing the sight picture. Ultimately, it's a whole package, right? So eventually, I want you guys to just don't get discouraged when you fall apart at 7. That just means that's where your maximum limit of shooting a fast target fast. The rest of the way, you have to actuate your trigger slightly different. Put a little bit more thought and consideration to the way you're manipulating that trigger the second you are further away from 7 yards. From here on out, it's up to you and how far you take this. The really cool thing about it, by utilizing the timer and the sets, is that it ends up recording all of your times and stuff like that from the beginning, where I want to go back to the start of it and I can see my first initial .17s and .20s, or going back to the end there where I was running at 20 yards from the draw, .18, .19, and .19. Those are the things that I like to look at, and the reason for that is because it just keeps me accountable. A lot of us go to train and kind of within 6 months, like, I don't remember, now we're guessing. I can always go back sessions way back 2 months, a month ago, according to wherever this is, and this is saved under the cloud system. So that's another advantage with utilizing the timer, doing all these little tests that you are doing with. All right, so hopefully that helps.